Hello everyone, my name is Waqar Chaudhry. I'm the Technology Evangelist here at NuoDB. NuoDB is a NewSQL database without compromise. And today's webinar is about scaling e-commerce solutions with guest speaker, CEO of Xcellence-IT, who will introduce himself later on in the webinar. Alright, so we're going to kick things off today by going over some e-commerce solutions and the scaling challenges associated with them. We'll provide you with a brief overview of how NuoDB can help you overcome these challenges. And we'll do a quick example of setting up nopCommerce, a very popular .NET-based open source e-commerce program on top of NuoDB. And then the CEO of Xcellence-IT will provide you with some of the value adds that they've built on top of nopCommerce later on in the webinar. And then finally, we'll end with the Q&A session. Please feel free to add any questions that you may have during the webinar into the Q&A chat window of GoToMeeting, and we'll be sure to answer all of your questions either during or after the webinar. When it comes to open source e-commerce solutions, there's actually a lot of choice out there. Today's webinar, we're specifically going to be focusing on nopCommerce, which is a .NET-based e-commerce solution. However, as you can see on the screen, there are many other options available for you. Magento is a very popular open source software that's been adopted by eBay. OSCommerce has been around for a very long time. If you're a fan of Ruby on Rails, Spree is an open source e-commerce platform built on top of Ruby on Rails. And of course, there's Zencart. The diagram on screen represents a very basic deployment of any one of these e-commerce solutions. You pretty much start off with a database, an app or web server, and a bunch of clients that connect to it. These clients can do some browsing, or they could be administrators working on the back end of any one of these e-commerce solutions. Many of these open source e-commerce platforms are actually used by first-time e-commerce store owners, or by people that are simply trying to augment some other type of business with a simple e-commerce solution. So in the beginning, a basic implementation of this e-commerce solution is sufficient for most of these people. In fact, for the vast majority of these people, relatively few customers connecting to an app server or web server with little demand on the database itself. However, as business of these e-commerce websites increase, many of these store owners turn to their IT staff and ask them to figure out a way to scale their existing system. Scaling out the app server or the web server is actually not that difficult. Add a load balancer, add an extra server, replicate some of the application over to that extra server, and connect to the same backend database. Now this might work for a little while, but ultimately you're going to run into some problems. As traffic continues to increase to your e-commerce site, you're going to want to build additional resiliency into your overall architecture by adding a database replica. The replica will help restore your servers and your application to a current state in case of failure or disaster. The more successful your e-commerce business, the more complicated your horizontal scaling solutions become. In this example, we're looking at an additional set of app servers or caching servers that can help improve latency related issues on the client side. But what about the database? To help overcome some of the concurrency related or transactional throughput related issues on your database, you may decide to adopt a master-slave strategy, where you're always only writing to one master and you're reading from a bunch of slaves, utilizing replication. This strategy has its own set of complexities associated with it. Some other strategies that you might decide to use are partitioning or sharding your database across n number of machines within your system. What this does is it allows you to intelligently partition some of the data so that when customers access it, it only goes to a particular database shard versus all the rest of the database shards. This is one way of managing your application. However, this has a whole other set of complexities associated with it, which also include changing a major portion of the underlying application that you might be running. Now, it's fair to assume that your business or core competency is not developing e-commerce applications, and this is a strategy that you may want to avoid, thus outsourcing some of that work, or maybe deciding that you want to go with a completely different solution altogether. Well, this brings us to the reason why we're all here. NuoDB, a NewSQL database without compromise. It's built from the ground up on a distributed architecture for geo-distributed data management. It brings scale-out performance and zero downtime to all of your e-commerce, web, or cloud scale applications. It's a proven ACID SQL solution. What does this mean? It means that you can now scale out all of your web applications on top of NuoDB without having to make major code modifications to any of the underlying code base. So here's what makes NuoDB so special. The most basic, simple deployment of NuoDB looks just like any other database to your applications. It uses JDBC and ODBC, or your favorite language driver, to connect to the database and read and write from it. However, underneath the covers, it's made up of three simple processes. A broker, which keeps track of all of the incoming connections and connects all of your client applications to the most responsive transaction engine. Transaction engines essentially process SQL requests. And your storage managers are responsible for making all of the data durable to some type of persistent store. Now that can be a local disk, it can be SAN, it can be S3, it's whatever you want to make your data durable on. Now, what's unique about NuoDB is that these processes can all run on a single machine, or they can be split up and run on multiple machines. NuoDB is elastically scalable. What does this mean? This means that as your website needs more and more connections and more users start buying materials from you, you can simply add more transaction engines to a running database and scale out your application. It's just like adding additional web servers underneath a load balancer. In this scenario, we have 3 transaction engines and a storage manager that all represent a single logical database. So your website and your products have gone viral. Not a problem. With NuoDB, you can instantly handle additional users and transactions per second by simply adding additional processing resources. In this example, we've added a few extra transaction engines across 2 data centers and a cloud environment. We've also added a second storage manager to give you built-in disaster recovery and redundancy. By geo-distributing your transaction engines across 2 different data centers and a cloud environment allows you to give all of your users a much more pleasant user experience when it comes to latency, especially on mobile devices. Best of all, when you add NuoDB to your e-commerce or web scale application, you're eliminating database complexity. You're also bringing elasticity to the entire application stack, from the app servers all the way down to the database. The coolest part about NuoDB is that it enables you to only use the resources that you absolutely need. As demand on your application goes up, you simply add additional NuoDB processes, and as demand goes down, you can simply take away those processes and reallocate those resources for something else. So now that you have a basic understanding of how NuoDB works, you might be wondering, what tools does it work with? Well, rest assured that NuoDB is a SQL database and works with all of the popular languages and ORM technologies that are out there. Everything from Java to Python, from Hibernate to Django. We also work with all of the popular SQL editing tools and visualization tools such as Squirrel SQL, DB Visualizer, Eclipse, Pentaho, BERT, and Talend. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into the demo. What I'm going to do is set up a vanilla installation of nopCommerce, which we've added some NuoDB code to from a connector perspective, and just get the base installation of nopCommerce up and running on top of NuoDB. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, and one of the first things that we need to do is we need to actually create a database for nopCommerce to start loading into. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use the NuoDB console to set up our database. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the specifics of the console and all of the various tabs that you're seeing across the top here. We're going to jump right into actually creating the database. If you guys are interested in learning more about the console, feel free to watch the webinars that we've done the past 3 months, and I go through an entire 15 or 20 minute explanation of everything that you're going to see on the screen here today. But the first thing that we're going to do for right now is start a database, and we'll call that database nop. Hit next, and what it's asking for right now is a location where we can actually save or persist the data for nop, and we're going to use just a directory that I've set up in my documents here. All right, copy that. paste that in here, hit submit, hit next, and then we're going to select a location for the transaction engine, and for the demonstration today I'm going to load up everything on a single machine. Hit next, and we'll create a user. We'll call our user nop, and we'll give it a password, and hit next. Confirm that we want to create this database, and hit finish. And just like that, we have a running database on this local machine with 2 processes running on it. And those 2 processes are, let's just go back to it here. Click on the database. And we have a storage manager and a transaction engine that's running on this database right now. Okay, so now that we have the database all set up, let's go ahead and set up our e-commerce application. And for that, we're going to use nopCommerce. Let me just quickly show you what I've done so far. So essentially, I've downloaded all of the code that needs to be placed into IIS for nopCommerce. And the way that I did that is I navigated over to C drive, inetpub, www-root, and I created a folder named nop and copied all the files into it. When I access my localhost /nop, it automatically brings me up to the install screen, and all I have to do is fill out the simple form, and I'll go ahead and add in my email address, my password, and we'll create some sample data, we'll add it to NuoDB, and I'll add the connection string, which is essentially the server, which is localhost, the name of the database, that's nop. The user is also nop, the password is bird, and the schema that we want to put this data into is store. So before we go any further, let's go back and create the schema. So let's navigate back over to console, and this time we'll select the Explorer tab. Now this is where you can go in and actually start writing SQL and looking at your database structure. So let's go in and open up nop. My username once again is nop. Password is bird. And we want to create a new schema. In this folder one more time. And we'll call this store. Click OK. And now we have a store schema. Let's go back and let's go ahead and hit install. Now what this is doing is this is loading up the database that we just created with all of the metadata and the sample data that's required to run the nopCommerce application on IIS on top of NuoDB. Okay, so as you can see, nopCommerce is now up and running on top of NuoDB. I'm already logged in here as the administrator. That's why I have the administration tab available to me. And the first thing that we want to do before we do anything is go into administration and set up a couple of things. Now, one of the things that you have to know about nopCommerce is you have to configure a few things in here, such as shipping methods and things of that nature, so that you can start adding stuff, or your customers can start adding stuff to the shopping cart. Okay, so this configuration is relatively simple. All we have to do is select country, pick United States, pick a state, and we are in the great state of Massachusetts. So let's scroll down and pick Massachusetts, and I'll just go ahead and pick a zip code in here. Hit save, and that should be enough for us to go back and start adding and removing stuff from the shopping cart. So let's go in, navigate back to nopCommerce, and maybe what I want to do is I want to go ahead and add a gift card for myself to the shopping cart. Scroll down, recipient name, I'm going to give this to myself, and recipient email, and we'll just use my NuoDB email here. And we'll say happy birthday. And it's not my birthday, by the way, but that's what we're going to say. So we'll add next. It's been added to the shopping cart. We click the shopping cart, and lo and behold, it's all there. So as you can see, it was relatively easy to go in, create a database, set up nopCommerce on top of that database, and start adding stuff to the shopping cart. Now, as our users grow, we can simply go back into the admin section, and as I promised, with a simple click of a button, we can go in and start adding transaction processes to this running database. It's a simple matter of adding a process. Now, if I had multiple machines configured, I'd see a drop-down list of multiple machines, but we can, just for the sake of demonstration, add another transaction engine to the same machine here, hit submit, and just like that, we now have 3 processes running on this machine, 2 transaction engines, 1 storage manager. And it's as simple as that. Okay, so if any of you would like to download this version of nopCommerce, we have not merged all of the code back up into the open source project, but we will make this version of nopCommerce available to you. We'll send you out a link in a follow-up email after the webinar. All right, so that's it for the demonstration. Once again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A section of the GoToWebinar window, and we will be happy to answer them at the end of the webinar. If we do not get to your question during the webinar, we will post all the answers to your questions to our community forum. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like Krunal, the CEO of Xcellence-IT, to go ahead and introduce himself and his company to you all. Thanks for joining us today, Krunal. Please take it away.
Hi there. Thank you, Vikar. Hello everyone. My name is Krunal Jariwala. I am CEO here at Xcellence-IT. Let me give you a brief introduction of Xcellence-IT and then our product nopAccelerate. We offer web development services on ASP.NET and PHP platform, and we specializes at offering e-commerce solution on nopCommerce platform. Moreover, we offer commercial nopCommerce plugins and performance optimization services. In the beginning, the basic implementation of this e-commerce solution is sufficient for the most of the people. However, when the businesses at these stores increase, they need a solution that scale their existing store to support growth, to support more traffic, to support larger catalogs, a more reliable store that can sustain the traffic that is generated with the expensive marketing campaigns. Over the period of past 2 years, we have worked on numbers of nopCommerce projects, and few of them are really larger stores that require scaling in the first few weeks of its launch. We also worked on few consulting projects which involved scaling nopCommerce. With all that experience and know-how we have earned during our projects and consulting jobs, we developed the performance optimization plugins and offer services to help optimize and scale nopCommerce stores under the nopAccelerate brand. And with the help of the NuoDB, which offers elastically scalable SQL, we plan to offer a service for scaling nopCommerce further for demanding stores. With that said, let me introduce you to a nopAccelerate. nopAccelerate is a commercial nopCommerce plugin that integrates Apache Solr with nopCommerce. Solr is a highly scalable, document-oriented, blazing fast NoSQL search platform that is built on the top of Lucene. It is distributed, fault-tolerant, and support optimistic concurrency. nopAccelerate uses Solr as a catalog engine that is used to offer faster search and faceted navigation experience on the top of nopCommerce, along with many other features. Like Vikar has already explained very well about scalability, we need to scale both app server and DB server. nopAccelerate plugin actually relieves some load of the application and database by using Solr's index as a primary source for all its catalog pages. nopAccelerate prefetches the catalog data from SQL and creates a Solr's index. Once enabled, nopAccelerate then make read queries to Solr instead of SQL for all of its catalog navigation pages. Now, as Solr doesn't need to join several tables like SQL on query time, it can offer a much better read performance. The result is faster, reliable, and easily scalable nopCommerce stores, and with the help of NuoDB, scaling it further is going to be a fun. Without going into more details, I would like to offer you a quick demo of some of the nopAccelerate features. Let's see them at our demo website. The store has about 80,000 dummy products in its catalog and using Solr as its catalog engine. Let's look at the category pages. Loading 96 products. You can see that products are loading instantly via Ajax. You can check the demo store details here. Let's go to the page that has many filters, cell phones. You can see many filters available here by brand, product, features, etc. With search interface where there are many options. Clicking on which refine the products list instantly using Ajax. It also offers many enhancements for the search like advanced language analysis, spell suggest, elevated results, fuzzy search, stop word synonym, etc. along with the drill down search. Let me search netbook. Notice the wrong spelling. It suggests correctly spelled term along with the alternative terms as did you mean. It offers many other features which are out of scope of this webinar. If you want to know more, visit us at nopaccelerate.com. Okay, that's it. But what does it mean for nopCommerce store owners and how it can help you? Now as store's business continues to grow further, there is a need to scale your store by adding new app server, Solar server as well as SQL server to support the growth. nopCommerce is adding a support for web forms in the next release schedule at an end of 2013. Solar can be scaled easily using Solar Cloud, and SQL can be scaled easily with the NuoDB, and this makes it easy for you to run nopCommerce at enterprise scale. We prefer to use and recommend NuoDB due to its excellent elastic nature that is easy to scale to n numbers of server in real time and without any downtime. We can help you implement the same for your nopCommerce store. Xcellence-IT feels proud to be associated with NuoDB as its nopCommerce service and support partner, where we will help customers scale their nopCommerce sites using NuoDB. Now I am not going into the details as Vicar has already explained integration part as well as how NuoDB can be scaled easily. So let's conclude this and start with the question and answer session. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you for listening. Over to you, Vicar.
All right, thanks, Krunal. All right, so that about wraps up today's webinar. Let's go ahead and get to your questions. If you have not already done so, please feel free to type in your questions into the Q&A section of the GoToWebinar window, and we will begin answering all of your questions. Once again, my name is Waqar. I'm the Technology Evangelist here at NuoDB, and thank you so much for joining us.
All right, everyone, we're ready to take your questions. We do have one question. Will this video be available after the webinar? And yes, it will. We'll send out an email to everyone that registered with a link to the video and the link to the version of nopCommerce that Waqar referenced earlier.
We have another one here, Lori. This is Paul Lothridge. I'm Director of our Program Management. This is from Andy Berryman. Will there be any future deep dive architecture NuoDB webinars? And most definitely, we've had a couple of requests for them, and I'm sure that we'll get Seth Proctor, our CTO, involved in bringing that to fruition.
Absolutely.
Here's another good one. So NuoDB basically runs on all platforms. So I can install it on AWS or MS Node. Yes, indeed. Actually, we have two different versions of AMIs on the AWS marketplace. One of them is our typical install, and it has a license, and you pay the typical hourly Amazon rates. The NuoDB does not charge, I think, for the base product install, but I think as you increase resources, of course, you're going to pay more. There's also another AMI. It is what Amazon refers to a provisioned IOPS, optimized install, and it takes advantage of their EBS volumes, and they have a guaranteed bandwidth to that volume that's dedicated. Of course, as you would imagine, it does have a higher cost to it and does demand more resources, but I would encourage you to take a look if you're interested in checking that out. Let's see, what else do we have here? Lori, do you have any good ones there you want to choose?
Let's see.
I can grab another one if you'd like.
Sure.
So this is from Trevor, and the question is, how does NuoDB handle changes to the DB schema? Do existing rows need reformatting? The existing rows are not reformatted unless specific columns require changes. NuoDB allows for concurrent schema changes, so adding a new column with NuoDB is typically an immediate operation.
So Paul, there's a question here about stored procedures, and I do want to say, if you're interested, there's a preview of what NuoDB is doing with stored procedures in our latest release, 1.2. You can download that from our website, just nuodb.com/download. There's also a few tech blogs on stored procedures. And we'll have a webinar actually coming up in September to dive into that a little bit more. So we'll be sure to get that information out to our users. Paul, I don't know if you want to take the specific questions or anything else you want to add.
Yeah, I wanted to add that as far as the tech blog goes, we love that we're getting a lot of hits on the site. A lot of people are commenting, and we're glad that that's become a good resource for everybody. I just wanted to mention specifically about stored procedures. Our VP of Engineering, Adam Abrabea, matter of fact, I just proofread his blog just yesterday, so we'll be posting that within the next day or so. So look for that in the tech blog. Vinay asked, will there be any stored procedure conversion tool available which will help us to convert existing SQL Server stored procedures to NuoDB stored procedures, as we have created customized stored procedures? Currently, we don't have one planned. We do have our migrator tool, which of course doesn't address the stored procedures as yet, but it's not to say that I don't think that that's a great idea. It actually does sound like an interesting problem to solve. I would also mention that the migrator is an open source tool, and you can find that in GitHub. And if it's something that you're interested in expanding on, I would encourage you to do so. What else do we have here, Lori?
How about this one about scaling? This is NuoDB makes the most sense if you have plenty of nodes to take, right? Instead of scaling up a single machine, you have many nodes. And we should just talk a little bit about how we scale.
Yeah, so NuoDB, it basically can take advantage of your host resources as long as you've identified them within the manager or within the console. And it's as simple as making a host a part of a domain. And the database can and will take advantage of that, whether you start a transaction engine process or you start a storage manager process. They become a part of the collective pool of resources, so to speak. And hopefully, I think that addresses the question.
I hope so. They'll tell us if not.
What else do we have here?
Let's see.
Here's an interesting one. This is probably a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I probably want one of the engineers to specifically answer this one, but I'll take a crack at it. Christopher asked this question. He says, what about network traffic? I assume having several transaction managers will increase network traffic. And the short answer is yes, it does. However, there are a number of ways in which the system manages that. And if you think about, so for example, in our upcoming release, there are going to be some geo-distribution features exposed. And with that, you'll see some intelligent managing of transaction engines that are spread out throughout the domain. So, for example, if a user is accessing a given part of the data set from a particular region, the transaction engine that is within that region will be handling that intelligently, will be handling those requests. In terms of the network traffic, yes, of course, it increases as you scale. But like I said, I would want an engineer to explain to you specifically how they manage that to keep that, the noise down, so to speak.
And I should mention, for any questions that we don't get a chance to answer today, or we don't have the full answer, we'll post the questions and the answers in our community forum, and we will send out a link to that as well. So feel free to keep asking, and just because we don't get to it right now doesn't mean we won't be able to address your question. Okay, there's a few more here. Let's see, this is probably a short one. Has any work been done to use NuoDB with Orchard CMS? I don't believe so.
No, not in-house. I have heard it mentioned among some users. We're always looking for new projects to take on to port NuoDB. nopCommerce, was a great example, and we really enjoyed that project, and we're looking for more suggestions. So I'll definitely take a look after the webinar is over and see what that would involve. And by all means, please, if you folks are using other types of systems and you're interested in learning about how NuoDB could be integrated, send a note our way, and we'll follow up and see what we can do. Adam Aberbe has joined us, and here's a quick question that maybe he can address. Is there a full text search available in NuoDB?
So we currently don't have full text search available, but it's something that's on our roadmap. We're in the process of planning out our work for next year, and that's certainly a feature that we've been asked for multiple times before. So it's something that's on the list. If there are specific requirements you have for full text search, please send them along to us, and we're happy to add that to the scope of what we're planning on building.
Thanks, Adam.
Let's see. Any other questions, Lori, on your side?
I think we have time for just one more. And let's see, how about that one that you've got up there?
Here's an interesting one from Andy Berryman again. Can scaling out be automated based on system heuristics? Adam, maybe that's a good one for you to take.
Yeah, so one of the exciting things we're in the process of building, and we've put out a preview of that, is what we're calling our database automation capability, where a user can describe the capabilities that a database will have, and the system will monitor for certain metrics throughout the database lifecycle, and can automate starting up a transaction engine or removing a transaction engine if one's not needed anymore. This is a major topic for development at NuoDB. We're releasing a first production version of what we're calling our database as service automation capability in about a month. And we'll be building on that capability throughout next year. And we certainly do intend to add automation capabilities that you're talking about in that feature of the product.
Great. Thank you, Adam. So, Lori, it looks like there's a few more here. I think what we'll do at this time is we'll take those and answer those offline. We'll follow up and post them into the forum. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to remind everyone, you all will get a link to the Q&A. You'll all get a link to the video recording. And if you want to follow up with us directly for any reason, you can email us at info@nuodb.com. And then definitely check out the tech blog for some of the features that we've talked about here that are coming soon. There's a lot of great information there about how NuoDB works and what's coming up in the future. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We'll see you next time.